Hello, everyone. Mike Grabham here today. Hey, we have got a great live session today. We are going to be talking about the mind, how the games that our mind plays with us, right? So we're going to talk about the how our mind plays games with us and makes us do things we probably are wasting a lot of time doing. We're going to get to that in just a couple of minutes. Hello, my name is Mike Grabham. And I do a live show every Tuesday, Thursday, sometimes on Wednesdays. And, it's all about how can we help startup founders, business owners move their idea forward, get it started, grow it in that world of, early stage entrepreneurship. So I've been lucky enough to start several companies. I've also been lucky enough to fail miserably. So I understand the whole process of the good and the bad. I've raised money. I've lost money. I've lost investor money. So I've been through the whole story, the whole journey of a startup many times over. So I'm here sharing my experiences and sharing experiences of others. We have guests on from time to time, we take deep dives into things like legal. We're going to do some legal deep dive next week. We're going to talk about another guy who wrote a book about refereeing, but it's kind of also pertains to how relationships are done in the business world. So all kinds of interesting stuff that happens here. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know what's going on out there, where you're from. Always like to hear that. We always have a question of the day, and today's question is here. Let me post it on the broadcast. So today's question is, how much time do you spend selling? So is it less than 2 hours, 2 more hours, or 4 more hours in your day? That's per day, not per week. So how much time do you spend selling? That's the question of the day. So give me a thumbs up, give me an answer in the comments of what that looks like to you and how much time you're spending selling something, whatever it is in your product. And if your role is sales, then obviously it's probably going to be more. If you're a CEO, you're probably still selling. Most CEOs are, typically one of the best salesperson in the team. So let me know how much time you spend on selling. So today, let's jump into it. We're going to be talking about how our mind plays games with us. So what I want to talk about is, and actually this is it's somewhat gender biased too, because I've been reading a lot about just how people make decisions. I always kind of studied that behavioral sciences and psychology around that. So one of the things that's really interesting is people think that they're more valuable than they really are, and it's really important for men. Men actually think they're well more valuable than they really are, and not so much for the women. So it's really interesting how men overvalue what they're bringing to the table. So we as human beings believe that we're either adding more adding more value to the meeting or to the company, to the product, or whatever the situation may be, but we feel like we're adding a lot of value. Now, granted, sometimes we are adding a lot of value, but in the grand scheme of things, when we're looking over a long-term things, we actually add a lot less value than we really think we do, which is interesting. Oh, and one other thing. Today, I'm in Seattle, Washington. Today, the Blue Angels are flying over, and every once in a while, you'll hear the plane fly over. I'm right kind of in the path. The lake is just a few hundred yards from our house. So if you hear that, I apologize, but it's super loud sometimes, but only for a few seconds. So our minds are playing games with ourselves. So let's think about a time. Here's a perfect example. So here's a time when you say you send an email to someone, you're asking for something, maybe some decision you're waiting for, or you're asking for something from that person. So you send them an email with all the details so they can make a decision. You probably talked about it, et cetera. So you're basically waiting for them to make a decision. Now, maybe you don't have a time frame on that on how quickly or slowly they're going to make that decision. Maybe there hasn't been a time frame set for that. So you can hear that. Hopefully you hear that plane. So that time, the minute you send that email or talk to that person, and then you're waiting for the decision. Well, in our minds, we are going through that and saying, oh, did we give them enough information? Did we give them the right information? oh, it's been 24 hours, they haven't responded, maybe they don't like it, maybe I should send more. All those things are going through our minds. And most of us do it. Like it's really most people think through this stuff, right? They're overthinking and spending so much time thinking about what they didn't do or should do, or what's the other person thinking. Well, obviously we can't control what the other person's thinking. Like, we can't do that. All we can do is give them information and let them make that decision. So here's the way we could handle that. When we send that email or we talk to that person, we give them the information, there's nothing more we can do. The only thing we can do is, if it's important information that we literally omitted and just forgot to give them, then you should absolutely send them that email or give them that information as soon as you realize that, hey, they should have this to make a better decision. It's better to come back 2 hours or 6 hours or 24 hours later and say, oh, sorry, Jill, I didn't give you this information. It's really relevant to what we're doing. It's better to do that than and just say, hey, I made a mistake, than to not give it to them at all, right? And think, oh, I shouldn't do it late, because then they realize that I forgot something. Much better to do the first way and say, hey, here, I actually forgot it. Here's more information. Make a better decision. Everyone will appreciate that gesture of saying, hey, I forgot it, but here's more information. So when they have that information, there's nothing you can do. There's absolutely nothing you can do. So there's no reason to think, oh, I'm waiting for this person to give me that. Maybe they don't like me. Maybe they don't like the idea. All those things are going through our heads, right? And most of the time, we're not. The other person's not thinking into that. So put yourself in the other person's shoes. So how many times has this happened to you, where someone's giving you information and you are, evaluating the information and seeing what needs to be, so you could make that decision? And are you ever thinking about, like, do I like that person? Do I don't like that person? Should I wait another 12 hours to make the decision? You're not thinking any of those things. You're probably just looking at information and evaluating, and maybe you're talking to someone else to get some feedback from someone else. And so that is the process of making your decision. So you're not like waiting longer than you should, or stalling because you think it's better to stall. I mean, most people do not do that. So realize that when you're thinking other people are doing that, it's probably not happening. Like, that is the funny thing. In our minds, we think that's happening. I had an email. It was Monday, so this Thursday. So on Monday, I had an email from someone I'm coaching along, right? And they were like, he'd sent me an email, but they were like pretty frustrated that this other company that he had sent us a small proposal to hadn't got back to them within, like, it was like 36 hours. I mean, it was a pretty short time frame, right? And I was just like, wow. I mean, he's like putting out these things like he should have done, or maybe they didn't do, or maybe they don't like all these, like, 3 or 4 reasons. So, I mean, he probably spent 10 or 15 minutes thinking through to send that email even to me, right? So think about the time that he's wasting just thinking through that and overthinking it. So we all do it. We all do it at some level. All I'm saying is, only spend time on things you can control. You can't control how the other person, and don't think that they're doing something just to spite you. It's probably not happening. I'm going to say 95% of the time, that's probably not happening. And believe me, it does happen, but it doesn't regularly happen. So, control those thoughts in our mind, like, hey, we're not good enough, or we're not doing it well enough. So that's one thing I want to talk about on the, how our mind is playing games with us. The next time that you have a big decision, now this goes both sides. So let's just say you're gathering information, you have a big decision to be made, right? It's better for you and for the person giving you information that may be waiting on you to set a timeline, to say, you know what, Joe, I'm going to make this decision by Friday, right? And let's just say it's Monday. So by Friday, I'm going to have this decision for you. So then it alleviates all that potential, like, when are they going to get back to me? So it's always better to give them a timeline of when you're going to make that decision. And from the other side, it's better to ask for a timeline. Hey, I'm giving you the information. can you have a decision by me by when, or when do you expect to have a decision by that? And if they say Tuesday and you want it by Monday, it's like, could you have it by Monday? So again, you need to set those expectations, because it saves everyone, especially you, just aggravation, just mind space, just wasting mind space. So that's the important piece about how to gather information, help someone along, and on the other side, don't freak out because you have not got a response in a certain amount of time when you didn't have any time frame set, right? So that's one thing. So let's talk about adding value. Like, I want to go back to the thing that men believe they add a lot more value to the process than actually is really happening. Let me talk about that. So again, Mike Grabham here today. We are talking about how the mind plays games with us and basically wastes a lot of our time. And the question of the day is right on the screen, right? How much time do you spend selling each day? Less than 2 hours, more than 2 hours, or more than 4 hours? Just put it in the comments, throw it in there, let me know, because we're doing, I'm doing these things around time, money, and customers, and doing some research around that. So I'm working on a kind of a framework that I've actually been working on for quite some time. So I'm going to be releasing that in the future. But so again, we as human beings think we add a lot of value to an equation, right? To a process, or to a product, or to a entity, to a company. And we just have to realize that we are somewhat a cog in the wheel. Even if there's a 5-person company, 10-person company, we are still a piece of the pie. And many times, many times, this happens so much that and there actually is some truth to this. So here's a story. 5 people, there were 6 people in the company. There's a CEO, right? And there's 2 other founders. There's 3 founders, including the CEO, and 3 employees, right? And they all obviously have stakes of equity in that. So the who is adding the most value to this equation? And we literally asked this question. Who we didn't ask it like that, but we had a consultant come in and they asked this question, like, where are people adding value? So we talked about that, and we talked about who adds a lot of value. And so people like, well, the CEO adds a lot of value because they actually had a lot of industry knowledge about what the problem we were working on at that point. So he was valuable, but there was other pieces of the pie that he literally couldn't do his work if other people didn't do their work, right? So that's where you've got to understand, like, yeah, the CEO had a lot of value to the equation in the company, but is he 60% value? No. I mean, he may be slightly more than 1/6 of the equation because there's 6 employees, but he's probably not half. He's probably not even a third, right? Because the idea is only one piece of the puzzle, right? You can have a great idea and no execution, right? And you can have great execution and no idea. So really, you've got to understand the value proportion of what you're doing. There's a great when I talk about value, it kind of slides into equity. We start talking about equity, like what's the equity portion of your contribution. There's a great solution called Slicing Pie. It's done by Mike Moyer, but it's great. Just look up Slicing Pie online, and Mike Moyer, the author. I'm actually going to have him on the live stream here in about 3 weeks, I think 3-4 weeks, towards the end of August, talking about how we slice up equity. But it's a really cool tool about how you can divvy up the equity in your company. So we're talking about value here today, guys, and what we bring to the table. And as human beings, we think we give a lot more than we really do. So just be aware that in human nature, we are believing that. So you need to understand that in your ego, so you know that you may be overestimating the value you provide in the company or for the product or in that meeting or etc. So it's really important. And again, I said this earlier, men do it more than women. So men they think they provide more value than they do women. I don't remember the study I read, but it was basically a self-assessment of what they thought added value, then the assessment of the others added value, and there was a huge discrepancy for men, and still a discrepancy for women, but not near as large. So again, it's something we do as humans. It's something that we all I'm going to say 90% of us do. So just be aware it exists and to control that. So one of the things I want to talk about again today is how that mind plays games with us. And that is, I just want to look at my notes. Sorry, one second. Okay, here's the thing on adding value. We all have our value that we add to most things, or we wouldn't have a job for the most part, right? So we have a job to do. The job that we're doing adds value to whatever equation that we're in, right? Whatever company, whatever situation, hopefully you're adding some value. Now, what we need to understand is the value, it has to match what is going on for the mission, for the goal of the company, right? So if you're if you're in a 6, 10 person, 20 person company, you have a lot, you can add a lot of value, right? I mean, 20 people, even if you divvied it up equally, it's 5%. Each person's, contributing 5% of the value for the company. So that one person can add a lot of things. So understand that you have a process or system or a job to do in your company. So give it all you can give it, but don't believe that the CEO or the VP of whatever is watching you and on a daily basis and saying, wow, they're adding a ton of value, or wow, they're adding no value. Again, your mind's telling you this. It's probably not happening. It's probably not happening. If you just go about your day and keeping the value you're adding in line with the goals of the company, you're going to do great. You're going to add a lot of value. You're going to grow. The company's going to grow. All those things are going to happen. So again, just be aware that as you keep in your lane, right? You hear this term a lot, keep in your lane, which means doing what you're good at and try not to do things you're bad at or not so good at, and let other people do things you're not good at. It's especially important for the CEO, super important for the CEO, especially at the early stages. Focus on things that you add a lot of value to the equation, and let others do things that they add value to the equation, and you add very little value to the equation. So in my belief, it's how and where can I add value? I talk about that all the time with my clients. Like, where can I add value to that? Me as a coach or a consultant, how do I add value to that thing, right? So I'm always looking for that. So I'm always asking about, where do you add value to this? Like, where's the value for your skill set, right? Super, super important, when that early stage, when your first few employees, and as a CEO, founder, and or co-founders, you guys need to know that. Like, where is the value for you? Like, where do you put the most value in to that idea? And you need to, manage that accordingly. And please, please, please don't think that other people are judging that on a daily basis. They are probably not. Hopefully it happens at some point in time, on a monthly basis or maybe a quarterly basis when you talk about reviews, but they're probably not doing it on a daily basis, and probably not even on a weekly basis, right? So it's your job as an individual to, again, align your value with the values and the missions and the goals of the company. That's the deal, right? So today, here's the question of the day. Of your day, how much time are you spending selling? Is it less than 2 hours, more than 2 hours, or more than 4 hours? I want to know that. So I'm doing a lot of work around time, money, and customers. So that's the question today. Put it in the comments, please. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know, where you're from, where you're watching it from. Let me do one other thing and make sure that we've got the comments answered and that process done. And we are looking good there. Yeah. Okay. So that's about all I have today. We are going to be back on Tuesday. So next week we got a great week. So Tuesday we do Sean Madden, who's got a new book about refereeing, but we're talking about the business world. So it's pretty interesting conversation. And then on Thursday we're doing a deep dive into trademark issues with a lawyer here in town, here in Seattle. That's going to be really, because we're starting to take these deep dives into certain things that people want to know more about. So that's next week. And that's it for today. Again, Mike Grabham here in sunny Seattle, Washington. It's an awesome day here, and it'll be an awesome weekend with the Angels, the Blue Angels. I don't know if they're the Blue Angels, but they're planes that fly over like almost directly over our house. So you guys all have a great weekend. I will talk to you on Tuesday. Be safe. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.